Hello all, welcome to lesson 10 of the Rook Endgames series. This lesson is more or less a complement to the last one. It will be a simple and fast lesson. In the last lesson, if you remember, we talked about the Vančura position, another technique to get a draw when the pawn was on the A file. The same goes to the pawn if it's on the H file, but here we have a similar position, but where our pawn is on the b6 square and b file. So the idea from black may be in error if they try to go to a Vančura technique. So as white, we are going to try to break the blocking on the second rank by the rook. Our idea as white is to reach the b7 square where we are going to win, and basically we can do it by breaking it and then coming from the a6 square. Notice that when the pawn is on the a file or h file, like we saw in the previous lesson of the Vančura position, well, that's not possible. The king can't go to anywhere besides the center of the board. And let's see now first how it's going to happen if black tries to apply the Vančura technique to keep the draw. Well, we simply approach our king. Now the rook just goes to b5, trying to check from above, of course, and notice that, okay, black has reached a Vančura scheme, so they believe now that they are able to check the white king and keeping the draw, but the problem is, of course, the king will go to a6, so from here it will reach a7 and it's game over for black. It's a loss. So the lesson today is to explain to you that we always need to pay attention. And when the pawn is a knight pawn, as in this example, we simply draw by reaching with our king because we are not facing the same threats that we were when we had the pawns on the H or A file. And let's see so how we do it now. So we bring the king. Notice that we need always to pay attention, okay? If you are playing defensive, you always need to see what your opponent is doing. So, for example, if white advances the pawn over here, what is the correct move? Yes, we need to come back with the king. So don't make the mistake of going, for example, to e7, because this allows, now I'm threatening to promote. And if the rook takes the pawn, we simply check the king. As you can see, it will be game over for black. So always pay attention. So we approach our king, paying attention to the position of the pawn. Of course, white keeps approaching the rook, but now we approach a king again. What happens if I approach now the pawn? Because the pawn is one file closer to our king on the beginning, we simply can also keep approaching, because now the option of going to the other side is not enough, because we simply can grab the pawn, and when the rook checks our king, we simply move away, but keeping the protection of the rook, so this is a draw. Sorry, come back a bit, but I will reach there. So here, the idea is if the king keeps approaching, I will also keep approaching my king. And of course, I will reach the pawn. Notice that on the next move, I will reach the pawn. Now, the king approaches the pawn, so I have two pieces attacking the pawn. There's no way white can protect it. And so let's say, for example, even if I try advance the pawn, it's just a simple and easy way to draw. I could do it in many ways, but it's a draw. Okay, this was a simple lesson, as I told you on the beginning. This is just to explain to you, so you pay more attention, that not always the positions are the same. Slight details, like the pawn is not on the A file, but on the B file, make a huge difference on the techniques we need to approach. This is the hard part of mastering the Rook Endgames. We always need to see what details make the position, and so to when we choose our technique, we do it properly. Hope you have enjoyed and see you in future lessons. Bye bye.